But I hope that this helps you have better discussions with your friends, your family, strangers, your doctor. Hey y'all, it's Morgan and welcome. It is currently July, which is Disability Pride Month, and I want to take this opportunity to bring some awareness to a few words that help lead to a more nuanced and inclusive discussion around disability. And those are invisible illness and invisible disability and dynamic disability. And these are not very common words. They might be sort of new-ish in the discussion, so like if you haven't heard of them, no big deal. That's why I'm making this video. And I do have personal experience with these, and I'll be referencing my own experience, but like these things cover a vast variety of people and symptoms and experiences, and these terms are to broaden the way we think about disability and think about people, and to remember that what we see on the outside is not always an accurate representation of what's going on inside. So I'm going to briefly touch on these topics a little bit. I mean, they could each have their own videos that are more in depth, but I'm just going to keep it short for the purpose of just bringing awareness to them and letting you know that they exist. But if you want a more in-depth video, be sure to leave a comment and I will certainly be happy to do that. I do like talking about this kind of stuff because people don't really know the stuff until you talk about it, and there's often not a lot of conversation happening around this stuff. Also, I apologize if the lighting gets weird. The sun's making its way over to me, and yeah, the sun's just doing its thing. So let's start with invisible illness and invisible disability. And it's very much what it sounds like. It is where when people look at you from the outside, they cannot tell that you are sick, are in pain, have impairments, have issues. You look normal. And this can present a whole host of problems, like trying to get a diagnosis from a doctor because they're like, what could possibly be wrong with you? You look fine. That kind of stuff. But just because it's not apparent to other people the struggles that somebody with an invisible illness is going through does not make it any less valid. Like, you're still having troubles that impair your daily life or your activities and your abilities. It's just not obvious to people. And some examples of this include, but are definitely not limited to, diabetes, ADHD, endometriosis, POTS, autoimmune disorders, and in my case, I had adenomyosis and I'm still struggling with chronic pain. And I'm trying to figure out what might be wrong with me. So even if you don't know what's wrong with you and you still struggle invisibly, like, it's still valid. Like, you don't need a diagnosis to be like, oh, now you're officially disabled. Like, if you are impaired and you have trouble living your life and doing normal things, like, you're disabled. Like, that's not a dirty word. It's just a description word. It's not dirty. People think it's a dirty word. But I talk about my struggles in other videos, so if you're curious to see what I've been going through, you can go back and watch my videos. I will link playlists down below for you to check out. Okay, and now let's touch on dynamic disability. This one's maybe not quite as straightforward as the first thing we went over, but this is where your disability fluctuates, where sometimes you might be more low symptomatic, lower pain, lower impairment, but other times, maybe after triggers or something, you have a flare. You have times when it does get worse and you are impaired more and that kind of thing. So what you're feeling one day isn't necessarily what you're going to be feeling the next day or the next week or the next month. Things fluctuate. And this comes with its own struggles of lack of predictability and not being able to make plans for the future because you don't know what that's going to look like. A recent example of this for me is that before traveling a couple weeks ago, I was pretty low symptomatic. I was more active around the house. I was keeping up with my daily movement and things were relatively good. But then I traveled, and like during and after travel, I had an increase in symptoms and pain, and even 2 weeks later, my pain is still elevated and is affecting my energy and ability to do things. And it's been 2 weeks since I traveled, and I don't know when it's gonna let up. So like that's part of the unpredictability part. But my flares aren't as bad as they used to be before I had my hysterectomy, but like I still have issues and I'm still impaired to some degree, and I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with me. But just because you're not always in the worst shape that you could be, like, doesn't make you any less valid, like, or what you're experiencing any less valid. One of the struggles with me and this whole dynamic disability thing is when I'm in the part where I'm like, low symptoms and lower pain, I'm like, oh, I'm better, I'm getting better, oh yay, and then something happens and it's like, woo, and I'm like, this again. But like, for some reason, every time I'm in the like low symptom phase, I'm like, it's never gonna happen again. But then it does, to some degree. If you take away anything from this video, I really want it to be that you just practice more kindness and empathy towards people, because you really don't know what they're experiencing. Like, you don't know what's happening internally, and they might look fine and they might be able to put on a mask that they are fine, and just like keep that in mind. Like, looks do not equal feel. Okay, that is as much as I'm going to touch on these topics today, but if you want me to talk more about them and how they affect people, or like just how they, just in general, if you want me to talk more about them, let me know down in the comments and I'd be happy to do that. And if you yourself are struggling with an invisible illness, disability, or dynamic disability, just know that I see you. I understand that it's not easy and it's kind of a weird place to experience being, and I hope that this video gives you some more language to talk to people about what you're experiencing, because it's difficult. Just like all of the stuff around it's difficult. But I hope that this helps you have better discussions with your friends, your family, strangers, your doctor, just all of it. I hope it helps. Alright, and if you found this video helpful or insightful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and I hope to see you again soon in the next video. Thank you for spending this time with me. I'll see you again soon. Bye!